Hi, welcome to another episode of Upstate Archives. My name is Kristina. I'm a digital producer here at News 10 ABC, and each week I sit down with local experts to dig into the Capital Region's fascinating history. This week I am joined by Sarah McFadden from the New York State Library. You're a senior librarian. How are you doing?
I am doing so well. I potentially have never been this excited.
Really?
I love talking about the New York State Library and its, very storied past. So,
oh, yeah.
yes.
Oh, well, that's really nice to hear. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I guess, like you said, a very storied past, and I think this is a real major one. We're going to be talking about the State Capitol Fire of 1911, which, correct me if I'm wrong, the anniversary of it just passed yesterday as of filming this?
Yes. Wow. And the Capitol Fire, March 29th, 1911.
Wow.
So still within the first 100 years of the State Library, but, we've been past that point, more than 100 years at this point.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a big part of our history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, just to get us established here, give us a little bit of a breakdown and introduction into the New York State Library at the time. When was the library established? What did it sort of look like? How large was it? Just paint us a little picture.
Okay. This is my favorite picture, so I am delighted. We're founded in 1818, which is very early. Mm-hmm. And we're signed into law by sort of the one and only Governor DeWitt Clinton, who gets work started on the Erie Canal, gets into office, turns around, and is like, you know what, State Library right now. So he signs it into law, and he's very interested in public education. He's very into reading and
Love
writing.
that.
He's a man of letters. And he really feels that that the new sort of republic is going to prove itself by competing with Europe in terms of arts and letters and science. So that's kind of his vision. So the State Library starts in just a single room in the old state capitol. And one thing about the State Library is we love to just outgrow whatever space we're in, immediately. It just happens immediately every time in our history. So in 1854, actually, they built a separate two-story building for the library. When it first opens, though, we have only about a little fewer than 700 books and 9 maps.
Oh, wow.
Just 9. Can't get to the 10 for whatever reason. So we're outgrowing spaces. We get our own space, and then the new Capitol is being constructed. And they actually need to knock down that 2-story library building in order to, finish the Capitol.
Right.
So we move in there. And at that time, we're closer to sort of 500,000 items.
Oh, wow.
So we've come a really long way from 700 books and 9 maps.
Right.
At the time of the Capitol Fire. The library has many different, very sort of deep collections, and some of them are books and some of them are manuscripts also.
Yeah. All right. So, I guess one of the questions that I thought about when I was sort of researching this was there a possibility, with so many works, was it ever a concern about there being a fire hazard, or was it ever sort of really, discussed?
Oh, yeah. It comes up a lot, and there are actually multiple fires. So before we...
Oh, wow.
Not as big. Smaller fires. But yeah, in pretty much every space that the library is in, there are fires. And actually at the point where they're kind of hoping to get into their own building in the 1850s, Governor Fish actually addresses the legislature, or writes a letter and says, there have been 3 fires already this season.
Wow.
We need to act. And they're typically cigarettes and cigars, that kind of, because everyone is smoking indoors all the time. And the other kind of piece of that is our collections are huge. So the work of the State Library, beginning right in 1818, is we're gathering all the sort of documentary history of the state. So that's still pretty close to the end of the Revolution. A lot of those kind of players are still, impacting New York in a lot of different ways. So we're collecting everything, records of New York State, but we're also doing a lot of exchanges. So New York State is established, but there's all kinds of new territories being explored, new maps being drawn. We collect all those too. So there's a big problem with space, and obviously everything is like very flammable.
Right.
So fire science, not really a thing yet. So there's just this anxiety that I think everyone carries with them from building to building. And then, yeah, in the new state capitol, there are even some small fires from cigarette butts and things like that.
Wow. And I'm looking at the photos here from the New York State Library, and it's very like jam-packed with books, which I love to see, but you think about if there's a small flame, it'd be very easy for it to all go up.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
And what were some of the most important works in the New York State Library at the time?
Oh my gosh, this is hard. So again, we have all those early records of, early New York and America in the Revolution and things like that. And so a lot of it is manuscript materials, so handwritten materials, George Clinton's papers, the Sir William Johnson papers. We have, just kind of speaking of items from the Revolution, Major John Andre's boot papers, his spy papers that are in his boot when he's captured, the George Washington relics. Like, we have amazing things in the collection at this point, and they are all in this building when the fire happens. And of course, there's other collections that we're still really famous for today, like the Van Rensselaer Manor papers. They were all there too.
Wow. So there's a lot of things that we could lose.
Yeah. Absolutely. The library officially is in about 20 rooms in the New York State Capitol. Wow. Unofficially, staff count it as about 100 rooms.
Wow.
So they split all the rooms up with like mezzanines and cubbies and things like that. And it's kind of, staff kind of refer to it at the time as like a rabbit warren, because you really have to know where to go to get certain materials, and you can only get to these little cubbies like one way. So yeah, everyone knows it's a disaster waiting to happen. Right,
absolutely. And so, let's just fast forward to the day of March 29th, 1911. Take us, I guess we'll just jump right into the fire. When did it happen? What happened?
Okay, so the fire actually does not start in the library itself.
Oh, okay.
Which is very interesting. So that night in the Capitol, there is a very late night legislative session, goes until almost 1 a.m. And the fire is actually discovered sometime between 1 and 2 a.m. By an assembly proofreader.
Oh.
And the fire is actually in the assembly library, which is unrelated to the state library, but it is close by. And so this proofreader sees, it's like, oh my goodness, there's a fire, it's quite bad, and he runs to find someone. And there's a couple journalists who are still kind of hanging around the Capitol as well. The library has a night watchman. He's required to lock himself in the library for the night, for the duration of the night. But there's another watchman on the premises who kind of finally runs out into the street and pulls a fire alarm. So the fire gets some time to get going, unfortunately.
Okay.
And the way that the Capitol is built, so it's this big, beautiful stone building, and everyone sort of believes it's fireproof. And there is a big stone wall between the Assembly Library and the State Library, but the fire actually travels through air shafts and windows. It breaks through windows, it jumps through air shafts, and it gets into the library really quickly. So between 2 and 4, by 4 a.m., the library portion of the Capitol on the western side is just an inferno. The flames are huge. They're punching out windows. People describe flames kind of exploding halfway across the street, out windows, things like that. Firefighters do arrive. And at this time, it's actually really interesting. Firefighting equipment at this time is still pulled by horses in the city of Albany. They're still a year or so out from an automobile.
Wow.
So they get there, but they have to basically focus elsewhere. The library is so incredibly hot. It's burning. The flames are huge. They can't even get in there.
Wow.
It's very, very dramatic. The flames light up the whole city, which always really kind of gets to me, that imagining what that looked like. And sort of the other thing that happens is there's like a snow effect of little pieces of like colonial manuscripts and other records that have been burned, and they're kind of like falling down on the city, and they drift as far away as like 20 miles.
Wow, really?
Yeah. People pick them up as souvenirs.
Oh.
Some of them mail them back, which is very responsible, but some of them don't.
Oh, wow. I mean, just looking at these photos, I mean, I feel like I can't even imagine the scale that this fire was probably at. And like you said, lighting up the entire city, I can't even imagine it.
Yeah, it is. It has almost this, like, not supernatural, but it is kind of otherworldly in a way. And because everyone was really surprised, they did not think this building was going to burn. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people at first were like, this is an April Fool's joke, which is terrible. And yeah, people are, even like very seasoned firefighters are kind of described as just being confused, like very surprised that this is happening.
Do we know the cause?
Officially, the cause was faulty wiring.
Oh.
And there's some investigation after the fact, and they do find that the wiring is set like directly into wood and plaster, which is you're definitely not supposed to do. And it's older, sort of, it's an older electrical system. It's about 20 years old at the time of the fire. And I look at these pictures from the Capitol at this time, and you can see lots of electrical wiring kind of like zigzagging all around.
Right.
That makes sense, absolutely. Some people, some staff members at the time, they maintain that it was like someone was smoking, which also tracks because that's happened a number of times. Right. And when there are sort of people using the building for multiple things, like you can't control that. So, but officially it is faulty wiring. Wow. And there are definitely some like terrifying just revelations about how that was all wired up. So
right. Yeah. Oh, that's so devastating. It's such a beautiful building, and just knowing all the works that were in there. I mean, as someone who also just loves reading and loves like learning and education, I mean, just you can't even. It's so sad.
It really is, and it's really so. There's another piece to it where it's just. This always makes me sound like super old-fashioned, but it's like they do not build libraries like this anymore.
No.
Right? Like, it's so beautiful, it's so ornate. And the other sort of piece of the collection at that point is we have tons of paintings. You can see some of them in the photos. Some are quite large, but paintings, busts, engravings, coins, medals, things, that people would come and see in person. Those are all in there too. And, just nothing really stands a chance.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think this is a good place for us to take a break. Thanks for sticking with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Upstate Archives. Thanks for sticking with us. So this devastating fire, how long does it take to be extinguished?
So it's like an entire day until it's cool enough for kind of anybody to go inside.
Wow.
And actually, library staff have to write a letter to the fire department to kind of get help getting into the building, and they end up using ladders to go in through the roof. Because the structural damage is so bad that floors just kind of collapse down through floors. So by that time, the 30th, they go in, but there are still a lot of fires kind of starting up. Mm-hmm. Things are still really hot. There's like 4 feet of debris on the floor, essentially, specifically where the manuscripts were. And sort of as folks start digging down, they find things that are like about to start on fire like... So it's very smoky in there. It's still really hot. People are picking things up that are very hot to the touch. And then, it's the end of March, so they spray fire hoses, and then things start to freeze also. Yeah. So it's kind of a nightmare in there. The salvage work begins immediately, but it's very difficult and very dangerous.
Right. So, I mean, when we talk about that these manuscripts and these books were destroyed, I mean, what kind of condition are we talking about here? Is it just like dust? Are there some that can be salvaged? Is like what's I don't know, the scale here?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. So again, there's kind of this notion that of like this fire is like a testing of different kinds of library shelving in a way. So pretty much all the shelving is metal originally. And folks are like, yeah, that's not going to burn. We're going to be fine. As it turns out, any of the books that are on the metal shelving, they kind of just get roasted to dust. And there's a point where Joseph Gavitt, who's a library staff member, he's the shelf supervisor. So he has an encyclopedic knowledge of where every single thing is in the library. He goes into a room. He's going into room after room. Not much there that really resembles a library at all anymore. He does find a shelf that he thinks are books that are fine, and he goes to touch one, and it just is all dust, essentially. The other thing that's kind of going on in the run-up to the fire is, again, because the library is running out of space, they're building small wooden shelves, like pine shelves, and just putting them everywhere, like in windows, on stair railings, everywhere. Those actually end up saving some books, weirdly.
Oh.
Yeah, the way they kind of like burn and collapse and make like a protective pile, some things don't burn. A lot of things you can see burn damage around the edges. So items that we still have today, actually, depending on kind of how they got buried in that pile or the shelving they were on, or like when firefighters got to them, there's all different levels. So some things are just kind of burned around the edges. But there's also the water damage. There are scraps of paper like being blown out the window. There's a lot, and a lot of things are just a total loss. The fire is hot enough. So essentially the fire, the building is fireproof, and library staff say, like, yes, it's fireproof in the same way that a furnace is fireproof. Everything inside is going to burn.
Right.
And that happens. Things are like columns are just melted. All the wheels melt off the chairs.
Wow.
The bindery, we had our own sort of big bookbinding operation. All that machinery just like falls through the floor.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's pretty total devastation in terms of the physical space. And again, the collections. A tremendous amount of salvage does go on, and they are able to sort of kind of coax these materials back together even after being burned and then like soaked with water for a lot of time.
Right. That's something I always forget about is the water damage that comes after a fire. So it's like this library just really got 1-2 punched in a way.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Crazy. That's crazy. Were there any fatalities or any injuries as a result of the fire?
Yeah, unfortunately, Samuel Abbott, who is the library night watchman, he is 78 years old, Civil War veteran, was actually the only person in charge of sort of patrolling the library at night. And as I mentioned, had to lock himself in the library with all the firefighting equipment, unfortunately. His remains aren't discovered for a few days.
Wow.
And it's not totally clear sort of how things transpired for him, but he doesn't make it out. And it's really devastating, and a lot of people are kind of asking questions like, why was it set up this way? During salvage, this is actually one of my favorite parts of the story. So there's a scholar, sort of this independently wealthy scholar from the New York Public Library, and his name is I.N. Phelps Stokes, full name Isaac Newton Phelps Stokes, amazing name. And right after the fire, he comes to Albany and he's like, I'm going to help. He's like, I know how to salvage these manuscripts. Oh. And so he and some other staff members go in and they're literally sorting through shovelfuls of paper scraps. And it's still so smoky that Stokes just keeps kind of passing out from smoke inhalation. And
wow.
They bring him out and like revive him, and then he just keeps like running back in. And then the other thing is there are National Guardsmen all over the Capitol to keep people from trying to loot things from the rubble. And one of them gets hit by like a falling piece of masonry.
Oh, wow.
And is injured. It's an incredibly dangerous environment. But yeah.
Wow. That's just devastating. I mean, how much is there a way that do we know how many works exactly were lost as a result?
So the exact numbers are really hard to come by.
Right.
Because in addition to the damage to collections, all the library records are destroyed as well.
Right.
So purchases and exchanges, loan records, any reports or other publications the library was working on, and about, I think it's like 3/5 of the card catalog are destroyed. But it is a lot. It's about, I want to say it's 30,000, oh, here it is, 450,000 books.
Wow.
270,000 manuscripts, and 300,000 pamphlets. I personally love the pamphlets. This is just a niche interest of mine, early American pamphlets. And 3/5 of the card catalog. So there are some things that are okay, and they are okay because they're not at the library at the time. So duplicate titles that are stored off-site, those are fine. Anything that borrowers or readers have in their hands are okay, but no one knows that they have them. So folks are basically just waiting for them to come back to the library.
Oh, that's so interesting. I never thought about that. Wow.
Yeah, this piece is like, that feels heavy to me because it's kind of just someone that, I love working in the library and just thinking about kind of, you have on the one hand, all the beautiful, amazing works that are gone.
Right.
But just, as a library worker, if all my like records and notes were gone too.
Right.
Yeah, like it's just like there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. So yeah, they find themselves in a really difficult position. And I think, I would say there are still things that we're kind of sorting out, like collection-wise from the fire.
Right.
It's something we live with all the time.
Right.
Every day.
Absolutely. So obviously you said salvage efforts started pretty immediately after the fire. How did the library begin to really rebuild its collection, aside from, waiting for the books to come back from those who had checked them out?
Yeah. So one of the really beautiful parts of this story is that as soon as this fire happens, the library community and just sort of the New York community responds. Just the letters that come in, and actually you can see a lot of these letters in our digital collections. So we get letters from all over the country, all over the world, expressing just devastation and support. One of my favorite letters just says, like, it's very, very brief. I think it's dated March 30th, and it just says, like, I hope it's not as bad as the press is reporting, but we know that it was that bad. So a lot of libraries make donations. They say, like, we have extra sets of XYZ, and they send those. And then, of course, the legislature does appropriate about $500,000. But it's really, it's work that's really ongoing. One of the major opportunities that the library has to rebuild comes along in 1935. The library receives a donation. It's the Gottschall collection. So it's about 1,300 books, but it also comes with money to purchase more items too. And that gives the library the opportunity to replace a couple things that were lost in the fire and also to buy some new exciting things. That work from the time of sort of the library getting the money to deciding what to buy and buying it takes about 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. But from that work comes some of the most popular items at the library today. Some of the really informative, enduring items are purchased with that money, in addition to those like really important replacements. And we'll be talking about that collection, the Gottschall collection, next month.
Oh.
It's a very beautiful piece of our story. But it's really one of the big moments where the library does kind of become restored to what it once was. And that's something that you read that phrase a lot in the letters from kind of right after the fire and as they're rebuilding is, this is the work of human brains and hands. If you were here, you know what it was to be around these collections. They say, the state librarian at the time actually says, like, we could not have, if we had wanted to set this fire ourselves, we could not have done a better job. So there's obviously like a lot of despair, but there's also this idea like we absolutely will build back and it will be even better, which is, it's amazing that anyone sort of was able to kind of get there, at that time.
Right.
And just, everything is a little more, in 1911, a lot of the technology that we take for granted now, even just like publishing technology, like it's still fairly early.
Right.
So it's not as easy to get additional copies or anything like that. So
Right.
it's a lot of work. It's a lot of bibliographic work that, library staff tackle, but they're driven. They're really driven. And it's really beautiful. And sorry, I get so excited about this. But one thing that is really great about working in the state library is we carry our predecessors' knowledge and the work of their hands and brains every day.
Right.
Right. We have a catalog. We have, just so many things that everyone contributes to over time. And that's it's really beautiful. And a lot of what we know about the fire too is from sort of manuscript accounts from folks who were there.
Right.
And were, writing about just kind of getting it off their chests, I guess, in a way, but laying out what happened and how they kind of got on the path to rebuilding.
Absolutely. No, that's such an amazing way to look at it. And I think one of the things that kind of strikes me too is I feel like, I don't know, a lot of times that people sort of overlook libraries or they don't, maybe we take it for granted because they're everywhere right now. But when things like this happen, you see all these people coming out of the woodworks to really appreciate libraries and the power that they have. And that's just so beautiful to be reminded of that, even though it did come from something so devastating. So very bittersweet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you said that because this fire is a little bit of a wake-up moment for some folks. Right. They realized they were living, a couple doors down from one of the best research libraries in the country. It's the story of the State Library, something that I think gets a little lost sometimes is that, it is for everyone. It's for all New Yorkers. Right. The actual language of the law is, it's a library for the government and people of the state. And, in addition to the collections growing very quickly, the other trend you always see in the state library is just tremendous use of those collections.
Right.
Folks are coming in. They love the space. The library in the Capitol right before the fire gets about 1,000 visitors a day.
Wow.
They have to put carpeting down because people walking through to look at things are disturbing the researchers. But yeah, people love the collections. It's our history, and not to keep repeating it, but the works of human brains, right? That's the beauty of the library. It's
Absolutely.
Connection to other humans.
For sure. No, totally. Are there any, fire prevention methods now in the library to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, there's so much. There's so much. Again, speaking of just kind of carrying something with you every day, this was a really important lesson for libraries everywhere. Certainly lessons around kind of maintaining duplicates and things like that. One thing I will say is kind of whenever I read about the Capitol fire, I'm always just very confused about a lot of the conditions just in that building generally. If you look at the photographs, in addition to all the weird electrical stuff, there are fireplaces set into bookcases and things like that.
Yeah.
The other thing is there was no climate control whatsoever in that building. That building, I don't know what was going on in there. But when you read a lot of the librarians' accounts of just working in there, they're yeah, we actually couldn't get this room warm enough to work in the winter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So now we have a lot of the environment is just really, really designed to keep materials safe.
Oh, good.
And there are a lot more, I always love to say internal controls are so important, but there's a lot more of that. The state library at this time, I haven't mentioned this yet, but there's also the New York State Library School that's kind of built right in there. And the state library, because of the school and just because we're awesome, we're always kind of at the forefront of library science. We're kind of shaping it as it goes. I count this as part of that. This was not the first major library fire, but a lot of lessons were absolutely learned, and the damage to collections kind of reverberates through the scholarly community. It's certainly not, the impacts are not limited to Albany at all.
Right. Absolutely. No, that makes total sense. And yeah, it's just devastating. But like you said, there's a lot of lessons that came out of it. And it's nice to see the power of humans when they want to be good.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, I know. I get really excited to talk about the Capitol fire, and that always feels really weird because it's this like major, devastating, destructive event. But it's a great story, and it's the starting point of a lot of great stories for us. And yeah, ultimately, a lot of really beautiful, fantastic things do come out of it.
Right.
But I try to like preface it always like I am not really that excited about the fire part.
Right.
It just seems like it.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I feel like we could just go on and on about it. I love talking about any and all libraries, even if they make me sad or if the stories make me a little sad. But no, I think it's just so valuable to learn about. And so, I don't know, just so interesting and so devastating and also beautiful at the same time. So thank you so much for joining me and for sharing the story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Loved it.
And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Upstate Archives. We'll see you next week.